So here recently, it seemed as if many within the Oklahoma Sooner fan base had turned their attention fully to the class of 2024. The Sooners are set to host several big-time events that are going to feature several of college football's top prospects, and of course, we're going to keep up with it all. But last night, news broke that sent shockwaves through the Oklahoma Sooners fan base, as one of the top prospects OU had just signed in the class of 2023, four-star defensive lineman Derrick LeBlanc hit social media and announced his intention to transfer from the Oklahoma Sooners today. We've got to break this down. We have got to talk about what this means for the Oklahoma Sooners and more. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you concerned for the Oklahoma Sooners defensive line? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions seem small, they are massive to content creators such as myself, and both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm, and we're on a push to 20,000 subscribers. I'd love to have you a part of this unbelievable community, but having said all that, let's jump right into this. And first and foremost, let's go ahead and rip the band-aid off. Let's ask and answer the question, what does this mean for Oklahoma? And let's get one thing straight. I don't think it's good news. I don't think it's great news whenever you have a need at a position and one of the guys you are so excited to actually sign to win that recruiting battle because it could help address that need announces their intention to hit the transfer portal before the season ever gets here. We need to understand that Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners staff have been ferociously attacking what they view as a big-time need for their team. Don't believe me? Just look at the transfer portal and the additions along that defensive front that the Sooners have added in. And look, like I just said, Oklahoma has gotten guys that they can put in day one because those guys have college football experience. Maybe that's a reason why LeBlanc hits the transfer portal. It's not for me to know, but it is interesting to note that now he's going to have to try and get a waiver, and if he doesn't get a waiver, he's going to have to sit out a year anyway. So this is absolutely a situation we're going to have to follow. We're going to talk about all that here in a little bit, but it is always paramount that you be able to get in the talent through recruiting. Those are guys that in theory you can keep for several years. Those are guys who you can be the one to develop. And that's exactly what many within the Sooners fan base were excited at the prospect of Derrick LeBlanc being able to do. Come in, get acclimated to the system, and be able to develop. Now, whenever we talk about Derrick LeBlanc on my channel, we'd always talk about the upside. You know the upside is there. Just turn on the film, it's evident, there is no arguing it. But one point I always came back to is that while the upside is there, there's no arguing that, I thought Derrick LeBlanc would come in, sit a little bit for the Oklahoma Sooners, not because of lack of talent, but because I thought they'd want him to add a little bit of weight onto his frame. He stands 6'4.5", 265 pounds per the 24/7 Sports Composite. And when you watch him play, he has got the perfect frame for a defensive lineman to be able to add 20, 25 pounds and not lose the explosiveness that really separates him from other prospects in the class. That was something that looked to be an exciting prospect for Derrick LeBlanc and the Oklahoma Sooners. So I was under the impression that if we saw LeBlanc, it would be later in the year after he'd gotten his body college ready, or next year where he could come in after having a year under his system of getting acclimated to the scheme, getting acclimated to college life, getting his body ready for college football, and then bursting on the scene as a sophomore. In fact, that was my prediction for what we would see. That doesn't look to be the case, or at least that doesn't look to be the case for the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, the flip side of this is that the Sooners have attacked the defensive line position through the transfer portal. They've been able to get several guys that in theory can come in day one and help them out, provide depth, provide them an ability to rotate several different bodies. And I've talked about this before. I don't think there's any understating how big it is for Oklahoma that Isaiah Coe comes back. He had a big game against Florida State. If he can pick up where he left off to end last season and begin this season with it, I think Oklahoma fans everywhere are going to have to be excited. So for the Oklahoma Sooners, this is a loss, but it's one that you've been able to slightly mitigate because of the moves you've made in the transfer portal. However, this does have a ripple effect, and we need to understand what this ripple effect is. Every battle you're after in the class of 2024 for a defensive lineman, it's more important now. We talked about the same thing whenever Za'Davian Sims didn't sign with Oklahoma and signed with the Oregon Ducks. And one of the things I was talking about is, hey, no big deal. You win some, you lose some. It's recruiting. That's the nature of college football, much like this. The transfer portal giveth, but the transfer portal taketh. And Oklahoma has been given a lot of defensive linemen out the transfer portal. Well, here comes the transfer portal taking one. This is the nature of recruiting. It's the nature of college football as we currently sit here and talk about it. But understand that even though this is the nature, it does make every battle you're after in the class of 2024 and 2025 that much more important. Just like I said with Za'Davian Sims. Okay, you don't get him, no big deal. That just means Joseph Jonah Ajonye, more important to your class. Nigel Smith, more important to your class. Williams and Winari, David Stone, more important to your class. And now with Derrick LeBlanc hitting the transfer portal, I think we can say the same. All of those guys are now even more important to the Sooners' future. Because it's great getting guys out the transfer portal. We talk about this. The transfer portal affords you something that recruiting just doesn't. And that's the ability to get a guy that you know has successfully made the transition from high school football to college football. However, for as much great work as the Oklahoma Sooners have done in the transfer portal, only one of the guys they got rated higher than Derrick LeBlanc coming out of high school, and that was Jacob Lacey. He's the only one of the interior defensive line additions that Oklahoma got that, if we were to look at where they rated in high school, would be able to boast a higher rating than LeBlanc. And so this is what the transfer portal allows for you to do, to get guys with experience. But recruiting allows for you to get guys and then develop them. Guys that, like Derrick LeBlanc, have very high upsides and you can develop them in your system. That doesn't seem to be what's going to happen for the Oklahoma Sooners and Derrick LeBlanc. So this is something we're going to have to watch. I think that it's not great news for the Oklahoma Sooners. I'm not going to shy away from that. But at the same time, we also need to understand there's a reason why Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners have done the work they've done in the transfer portal. Before we get out of here, let's take a little bit of a dive into that work. You're talking DeJohn Terry. You're talking Devon Sears. You're talking Rondell Bothroyd, Trace Ford, Jacob Lacey. Several names that Oklahoma fans need to be excited about, but at the same time, we also need to acknowledge there's a reason why Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners have been this ferocious in the transfer portal after defensive linemen. It's not for no reason. They're trying to stack depth before the move to the SEC happens, and even with Derrick LeBlanc, they were trying to stack this depth. Super intrigued to see what happens now, but I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. The Oklahoma class is still in a really good shape. You lose a Derrick LeBlanc, you lose a top 300 prospect. When we look at top to bottom, that 2023 cycle for Oklahoma, still very impressive, but I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it.